What are these reforms? What's the problem with the current home occupation regulations? Most cities regulate home businesses that cause nuisances, that could cause nuisances. We're talking about traditional brick and mortar businesses that are essentially run from home. So back when these regulations were first enacted, that was what we were talking about. So there are limits set on how many visitors come to and fro the business. Commercial vehicles, things like that, things that would cause a disruption to normal and usual residential activity. So there are limits saying you can have only X amount of visitors, one commercial vehicle, that sort of thing, to make sure that all together, all of a dwelling's home businesses are indiscernible, as they say, from normal and usual residential activity, which is great. We all want that. And the city of Sacramento has those regulations. Unfortunately, on top of that, the city of Sacramento takes it to a whole other level and regulates businesses that are very, very common now, since the COVID-19 pandemic especially, that have, by definition, no discernible impacts. In fact, they reduce impacts on the neighborhood because they generate often less traffic than a single commuting adult would. So people are conducting all customer-client interactions online, by phone, by Zoom. There are no commercial vehicles whatsoever involved. So there's not even a need to apply those limits of a number of visitors and commercial vehicles and such to those businesses. There's really not even a need to regulate them. And in most cities, they are not regulated. But in Sacramento, we regulate them. What does that mean? We require they pay currently a $154 home occupation permit, which will be going up over 50% to $234, which is pretty steep when so many businesses make under $10,000. And then on top of that, and this is the crux of the problem, there are a series of extremely unusual, completely unnecessary regulations that apply to these businesses and all businesses, home businesses, that are things like you can have only only two per dwelling, no matter how indiscernible they are. Only two, only 3 involved residents, using at most one of the families or the households otherwise permitted ordinary household vehicles. We're talking about even occasional use. You can only use one, no backup vehicle for you. And 10% of the home's square footage, regardless of the size of the dwelling, which, by the way, is particularly burdensome for larger, often minority, low-income households who tend to live in smaller dwellings with more people. On top of that, even now, the fee for requesting exceptions to those onerous and unusual regulations is thousands of dollars, which is completely out of reach for most home businesses. So, and then that would go up to over $5,200.